Tommy, I mean, unbelievable. When you listen back to Will Ospreay and MJF, the back and forth was absolutely incredible. And MJF played the role perfectly, especially when he was talking about Will Ospreay's wife, because he knew he couldn't get physical, right? So he got right up to his face, like just got right into his head. I couldn't think of a better segment than the one those two put off last night to get you ready for their match coming up on Sunday.
I agree. I loved it. There was so many different layers to that promo and what those two men accomplished. The honesty when Will Ospreay speaks is just awesome. Like, and then how he relates, I was just so good because I mean he said it. Like, I can't believe the love I'm getting in Wales from an Englishman. And then he relates to a story. When we talk about market specific, I don't think anybody in the United States knew what he was talking about. But he wrapped it all together about this friggin' TV show that's apparently popular there. And he related himself to their popular TV show because, listen, everybody in that crowd knew what the hell he was talking about. I was thoroughly entertained, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I know Will Ospreay is one of the best pro wrestlers currently today. And since he's come to AEW, his mic skills, and he just is so engaging. I listen every time this guy talks, you know, and he just conveys this different type of message. He also listens to the crowd, and the best part about that promo, and there were so many different levels to it, he got the fans chanting for AEW without saying AEW, talking about being a leader of that company, talking about what this company's mission statement was supposed to be. And yes, it may have veered off the path, but he's going to make sure they stay about it. And what's that mission statement? Pro wrestling. Me personally, if you're just going to say, hey, we're putting guys in the ring and girls in the ring that are good wrestlers and they're going to have matches, that just falls short. You want the storylines. You want what we're getting. He has, I said this last night, the Joker. The Joker is, if you go back and watch that movie, you want to cheer for the Joker. The Joker is like, man, you see so many different sides of why he is this guy, except for the fact that he took his aggression out on the wrong people. He wanted to kill people who were innocent, and his babyface was Batman. And Batman will do whatever it takes to defend the people of Gotham. For Will Ospreay, he will do whatever he can to defend the people of AEW and people who support pro wrestling. And MJF is that perfect villain for this scenario. I mean, hometown kid versus the evil American. And all of this buildup and all of this real back and forth going on and on. And then what does MJF do? Because every great heel, Ric Flair, the greatest. If I could tell you two of like Ric Flair's signature things, it's the woo, and then it's putting his hands up and backing off. That's going like, because if you're the best in the world, you don't back off. Michael Jordan doesn't not go for the dunk. He doesn't go for the shot. He continues to go for the. But when you're a wrestler and you're a heel, you back off. It shows that you have weakness eventually. And when he just hit that line, they used to love me before you. And there's like, oh, like he said it. It slipped. Commentators picked up on it. Brilliant. Because it shows insecurity of MJF. Because he's another character, if you think about it, shouldn't have made it. Those two guys are so parallel because what do we know Will Ospreay for? Great wrestler. MJF had to prove he was a great wrestler. MJF had to prove he was, didn't have to prove he was a great talker. Everyone knew he was this great talker, but can he do it in the ring? Will Ospreay can do it in the ring. Now it's, can Will Ospreay talk? He was in Japan for most of the times. Most of the time you hear him talk was when he was doing those press conferences. He's captivated and held audiences for AEW for a while now. And again, unique and specific to where he is. And that dude, it's awesome. When he said that, I seriously was like, man, I once said something similar to that because I'm a guy from New York that's getting love in Philadelphia when the Flyers and the Rangers were competing. And there's a big rivalry here. And I'm like, how is this my life? And like, you have to like show love to like when people hate you. It's somebody, someone from Boston to be accepted in New York. There's all these different things, right? But when he opened with that, I was like, God, this is going to be great. That's all I needed. And every word was great. Every word was back and forth. And then when you're having an argument, David, I'm sure you've had a few arguments in your life, you more than others. It's going to get heated. It's going to get fired up. And then you're going to start trying to push buttons. And you know you're pushing buttons, Dave. I see how you work, you son of a bitch, LaGreca.
And you also know like when you've gone too far.
Correct.
Because you're so angry. You know you shouldn't say it or you shouldn't do it. You know it. But, your emotions take over and you go there. And you're 100% right, Tommy. And I felt like that multiple times during that segment.
They went there.
Yeah.
And then at the end, and here's the other part. The fans knew Will Ospreay's story. And when I say they know his personal story, and even like joking about like his wife, who's, from Wales, and just you relating to like, hey man, this UK kid would drive 3 hours to go see, his girl. And I wrestled in this place. And they're like, yay, I've been to this place. They know his journey. They love his journey. And they want to see him win. And again, MJF did everything in his power to like, I have to win this argument. There's people that will argue and they will not see eye to eye on anything. If you want that, just go on Twitter and just read it. You will not be able to convince certain people different things. This is the same way. I'm this, you're this, we have to face blah, 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 blah. Once he goes and he says it, once he drops that, the bomb about his wife and all that stuff, I mean, that's low. And then something I love that I saw when he went to Shivani and he went to Tony Schiavone and said, hey man, you got Tony Khan in your ear, right? Tony, how much is this fine going to cost me? He says it, and then he's like, it's so worth it. And he punched the guy in the face. And end result, a bunch of men come in to hold them back. MJF, what does he have to do? I got to cheat. I got to load the ring. I'm going to knock you out. A foreign object. We have our babyface battered and bloody. I'm going to go because you're afraid of going for this Tiger Driver. I'll hit it in a heartbeat and cripple you. Because I'm the bad guy. I'll blow up. I'll blow up 10,000 people that are innocent, or I'm going to take out the one girl that you love. What do I do? Batman, well, somehow he's hardcore and he wins them both. But the end of the day, we're going to see these two guys go at it. It's going to be the mileage that those two guys can get without doing anything in the beginning, and then how invested the crowd is going to be, is worth the price of admission alone. That's why I said if I had any choices of what's going to be my main, because his career's on the line, I would put Bryan Danielson's match on last. I can't even say worry about that outcome, but I also know if I have Will Ospreay versus MJF, it's going to be insane. The match will be great. And then my result, if the hometown kid does good, how do I not get people invested into All In? Another thing, and I know this show goes everywhere, we always talk about enjoy what you have because it could go away. All In will not be in the UK next year. It'll be in Texas. People from the UK, go and see that show because it was great that it was established, and I do feel there's more to that story, and time will tell what happens there.
Yeah, it's a lot from what you just said, Tommy. Number one, we'll start at the end, and that is about this is going to be the last one in Wembley, and appreciate what you have when you have it. And hometown hero does good. You know, that is a great way to end that show. If Will Ospreay beats MJF for that crowd, I don't know if there's a bigger moment. And then you're taking the chance if Swerve and Bryan Danielson is your last match, as it should be, and it most likely will be. If that's your main event on Sunday, Tommy, there's a good chance that it's gonna end. That show is gonna end on a very sad note. Like, you know, if Swerve wins and holds up that championship, you know, people love Swerve, but they're not going to be happy about Swerve winning that championship. And then you're going to see, you know, Bryan Danielson in essence take off his boots in the middle of that ring in front of 50,000 fans. That's going to be a very surreal and sad moment. Is that the best way to end your show on Sunday? Maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. But if Will Ospreay wins and beats MJF on Sunday, there's not going to be the crowd is never going to be higher than that moment where Will Ospreay wins that match. Or maybe Will Ospreay doesn't win the match on Sunday. It's match placement is going to tell us a lot about what's going to happen on Sunday, I think, Tommy.
I still say go world title, but here's the best part of it. I hand Bryan Danielson a microphone. Dave, I wrestled this Friday, and fans are chanting, "You still got it." I had a great match, and I realized that I've been in this building 15 years ago for another promotion, and then I'm like, "Hey, man, I can't believe I'm still here. I have limited time in this business," and everyone's like, "Ooh, no," and they were like, "Don't do it," and then I was honest, and I said, "Guys, on my flight here, both my arms go numb from sitting, and I don't want to live a life of pain. And I don't know if I could do this travel anymore." And once I said that, people were like, "Oh, like, okay." With Bryan Danielson, man, the guy has had so many surgeries. He literally has said in interviews, "I need another." I've never had any surgeries. I don't know the pain that Bryan Danielson lives in because I don't live a life of pain. So if he gets on that microphone, yes, he's got his beautiful wife, his beautiful kids, and he just, like, here's the other part. We never get a chance to say goodbye. He could literally say goodbye in front of the largest audience and just be like, I love you guys, but I have another love. And if you're truthful and honest, like, it's almost like, just thank you for being here and thank you for giving us all these things. It's emotional, but then don't you want to have like 50,000 people like cheering your name or crying and just being like, "Man, I was there for Bryan Danielson's last ever match." Like, I'm so torn with this but like, if you get to ride off in the sunset and there's like, "Hey guys, after all these years, I'm going home." And it's like, "Thank you." And you're like, "Oh crap. Like, at least I got to be there." I was there, Derek Jeter last game, right? And it was awesome. It truly was. Honestly, before we were having this conversation, when I'm talking about great wrestlers, I'm like, who got a chance to say goodbye? All these people. Like, did William Regal get a chance to say goodbye? William Regal had a nice send-off in AEW, but did he get to say goodbye like, "Hey, I can't wrestle anymore. Oh, this is my last match"? Did Dean Malenko? Like, I'm going through the list, and I'm not like Eddie Guerrero. He passed away. He didn't get a chance to say goodbye. Like, we just unfortunately lost him. But then, like, for men and women, when their career, when it ends, like, and even like great athletes, did we say like, this is going to be his last time? Kobe's last game was friggin' amazing. He got to say goodbye the right way.
Hulk
in his
Hogan, who's arguably the greatest, the biggest superstar in the history of pro wrestling. And what was his last match? When was his last match? He didn't get to say goodbye. He didn't, he went to TNA and then I think his last match was like in Australia or something. Like it wasn't even, he didn't even have like a final bow or a final goodbye. I mean,
Steve Austin.
Steve,
He just wrestled Kevin Owens. When all that stuff went, he didn't just wrestle him, but like when all that stuff went down, I was like, wait, how long has it been since Steve Austin wrestled? And I was like, holy crap. Did Ricky the Dragon Steamboat get to say goodbye? And we thought we were going to have a Ricky Steamboat resurgence. However, he had something, had a brain aneurysm or something, all that stuff. My point is of this. As a performer, we never get a chance. It's very rare we get a chance to say goodbye. Sting said goodbye. And it was awesome. He was 62 years old when that happened. And we got to say goodbye to one of the most beloved characters of all time and entertainers and somebody who changed the industry. You could say the same about Bryan Danielson. Is it going to be sad that I could, but then just think like, man, but I got to see Bryan Danielson. If he loses. If he wins, it's a whole new chapter. But like that's why I'm so torn of, is there the proper way to say goodbye?
Sometimes you're given that opportunity. The Nature Boy Ric Flair had the biggest send-off you could possibly have. Goes into the Hall of Fame on Saturday, has his final match at WrestleMania against Shawn Michaels on Sunday, and then on Monday Night Raw the next night, the ultimate send-off where the roster is holding him up on the air on their shoulders. And then, and a year later, he's wrestling in TNA. Like, The Undertaker, that's why I got so, The Undertaker's last match was a cinematic match against AJ Styles.
Dave, for myself, you were there. I got to say goodbye to I knew I was leaving. I wasn't happy, but I wasn't saying goodbye to the business. I was saying goodbye to ECW in that whole promo because I knew ECW was probably going to go away and I didn't want to be a part of it because I went through that heartache before and a lot of people still bring that up. I have it still saved on my DVR. I won't watch it because I'll get upset, but I had the proper way to say goodbye to something that I loved, but it wasn't wrestling. I wasn't a loser retire match. It was a chance for me to say goodbye to an audience that I loved. And guess what? I still got called back a bunch of times, which is fine. I'm happy with it. For me, that was a moment. For others, you don't get that moment, or you just like, all of a sudden, I'm not wrestling anymore. All of a sudden, I'm not doing what I love to do, or I'm doing it like my last match is going to be on an indie show. Something to that effect for a lot of wrestlers. Or they just keep going and making appearances and doing all that stuff. But I don't know, like, specifically up, and right then and there, I knew it was my last match. There's wrestlers that, like, they get let go from WWE, and they'll do a couple of indies, and then real life kicks in. I got to pay the bills. I had to do this. I never had a real last match. So it is a perfect scenario to say goodbye as well. And I don't also, because what is it really? It's emotion. And like, if you're talking ratings and you're talking all that stuff, me personally, if I'm the businessman, I say, no, you're not retiring because I want to get a few more houses out of you. And I'd rather say goodbye to you in your hometown, all that stuff. But hey, there's not going to be 50,000 plus there. It's not going to be in our biggest show there. And then it's also like, think of he never won the big one. That's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, that is a thing. Like, that's going to be something that, could haunt. I remember having this conversation with Shannon Sharp. He said when he puts his head on the pillow at night, he doesn't think about the Super Bowl victories. He thinks about the losses. This could be something that haunts him, that he was never able to win that belt.
Think of all the Hall of Famers that I don't know if they'd trade in a Hall of Fame, but for winning a Super Bowl.
Like Dan Marino. Would Dan Marino trade in his Hall of Fame ring for a Super Bowl ring? Like, does Dan Marino feel like his career was incomplete because he was never able to win a Super Bowl?
It's so funny you just said that, because I just had, because you know me, I always insert real sports to professional wrestling, and I'd be like, there's one person that can say he was perfect, and that was Don Shula, not the players. Because players fumble, they'll throw an interception, all that stuff. And guess what? He was able to say that for one season, because the moment he lost, you're not perfect anymore. And he doesn't go down as the greatest coach of all time. If that would have happened with the Patriots, Bill Belichick, he would have been able to say, man, I was perfect for a year. I made no mistakes for a year. What I'm trying to get at is this whole thing about your life, your consequences, but I'm sure if we had Bill Belichick here, he'd be like, man, I would have really loved to have won a Super Bowl last year. It's just, that's being competitive. And in real life sports, the biggest part about all of this is Bryan Danielson is one, or if not the greatest wrestler, greatest performer, he's an entertainer. Is this where we say goodbye? And if so, like, I hope you appreciated what that man gave, because he gave you his entire body every single time he went out there.